Hey everyone, it's A Dog's Life with Angela Ardolino, and I'm super excited about my guest today. She is a veterinarian, and I think I met her the first time at the Dogs Naturally Raw Summit, I believe, or it was the AHVMA. It was one of those,
2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, all blended together. And I probably asked her then to be on my show, and then time went by, and literally I was thinking today, it was probably whenever Hernando reached out to you, I was like, I still haven't had PJ on. I still haven't had PJ on. And then I was like, well, why haven't I had her on yet? And I think
Because it wasn't time.
It wasn't time. But now I know why. And that's because my Doberman, Nina, 8 years old, has osteosarcoma.
Oh, okay.
So I know that you have a lot of amazing experience treating dogs. But first, everyone, PJ Broadfoot, one of my favorite holistic integrative vets out there, has what I think I love most about you, and the type of vets that I have on this show are vets that got out of school and went, wait a minute, I didn't learn anything about that or this. And wait, someone's telling me that this worked on their animal. Why didn't I hear anything about that? Our chief, we just brought on a chief vet, and he is one of those young vets that got out of school and went, nobody said anything about the endocannabinoid system or cannabis. So then he went out there and became an expert. So of course I was like, come.
Yes.
There's even more.
Come hither. That's right.
If you can even imagine learning about cannabis first before learning about Chinese herbs and homeopaths and acupuncture and all of that. So,
or non-steroidals, or yeah.
Exactly. So his mind is blowing because now he's learning it. He learned cannabis first and now all these other things. But you're an integrative vet. We don't need to know. If you want to know her life story, you can go on her website and look her up, PJ Broadfoot. Otherwise, she's one of the coolest and best and my favorite. So you're just going to have to take my word for it, because we want to talk about, get right into the conversation of these wonderful integrative modalities that you have had such great success with. Some of my favorites that I definitely want to talk to you about are blood therapies.
Yes.
I love the concept. I love, I've heard you say about where you learned it and how you were like, what? Could you talk a little bit about that? About, how it made you go, oh, yeah, that makes sense. And then how blood therapies work. And I know that we can do vitamin, we can do ozone, we can do Thymus, we can do all kinds of wonderful things. So tell us about that and how.
And sometimes combined, actually. So.
Oh, wonderful.
So sometimes the funny thing about blood therapy was my first introduction to it was when I was in vet school. So you get those breadcrumbs that people drop, and you think at the time, what a very strange thing to say. And it was actually one of the older bovine vets, one of the cow vets, who, I wondered later, did he say that to all of those groups, or was it for our benefit, my benefit? Because it came back around later. He said, well, if you can't get that cow over it, take a slug of blood out of the jugular and put it back in the hip. And I thought, okay, that was just weird. And and then for years I wondered where he came up. You'll have to excuse it because we're at the clinic. For years I wondered where he came up with that.
Let's stop for a second, because we just had the phone ring. I don't know whose phone that was.
Well, I'm at the clinic, so.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll just start with that answer again.
Yeah,
okay.
Thank you so much.
Just start from that's the state in your mind.
Okay, so that kind of stuck in my mind for a long time, but I did not know where he got that. So years later, when I was in Germany, they were teaching blood therapy, autosanguis. It's a very big part of homotoxicology, which is a branch of nanopharmacology, kind of a offshoot of homeopathy. And it was just, all of a sudden, all of that came back, like, well, somebody said something about that in vet school. Well, about 2 or 3 years ago, because my lectures are never done. I've done autosanguis lectures for about 20 years. And a few years ago, I thought, I'm going to go back. I want to know why he came up with that. Well, the funny thing was Mayo Clinic was doing autologous blood therapies in the 30s and 40s. I think his name was Dr. Rosenau, and it just kind of fell off the radar, probably because you can't slap a big, cost on it because you're using your own blood. Right. Although, their PRP is a form of autologous blood therapy. They're just using the platelets. And they charge quite a bit for that, I can tell you, because my son had it. But it's a form of blood therapy. So all of a sudden, and now if you look at autologous vaccines or, like the cancer vaccines, they're using your tissues. And they're taking that and they're giving it back. Sometimes they process it, and sometimes they just give it back, just as is. We mix them with homotox, the homotoxicology things. A lot of people will do ozone. I actually had ozone therapy in, what year was that? Probably, at the same time when I was in Germany, they gave me autologous blood therapy with ozone and homotox. So I've been fascinated with ozone for a long time too, and I finally got an ozone machine. I'm still learning how to use it, but you think about it, what you're doing.
You sound just like me. I have the machine too. I have no idea how to use it.
Yeah,
but Dr. Zach is learning all about it, so we're gonna do it.
Exactly. It's embarrassing to have it that long because I've loved it I've just been interested in it a long time. Well, when I went to Romania and lectured in March, and I went with a friend of mine who asked them to invite me, and he taught ozone there. Well, that's when all that coronavirus was just hitting, and I thought, okay, it's time to get an ozone machine. So when I came back, and I didn't get to watch his wet labs where he actually demonstrated how to use it because I was giving my own. So I got back and I've got this gizmo with all these tubes, and I'm still learning. But
I told Dr. Zach, I go, we just need oxygen. And he goes, well, how do I get that? And I'm like, I don't know. You're supposed to write me a prescription or something.
Yeah, I got to get an oxygen bottle. Yeah.
So I think we have figured it all out. So yeah. I'll tell you if we figure it all out.
Yeah, it's the mechanism of it. It's not that I know it works. It's wonderful, but it's just getting it set up is the problem. So anyway, I had
giving it through as a blood therapy.
Well, I haven't yet. But I have had it, and I know it works remarkably well because after I had that, they gave me thyroidea. They actually gave it for jet lag. And for the next month or two after I came back, this was like February, my hands and feet were warm. So it changed me metabolically because my hands and feet are always cold.
So are mine.
So yeah, so I've thought that was a cool therapeutic ever since, but just never had the opportunity. Well, Shabby, good grief. Well, do you love dogs in the background? I'm going to send you to the back. You're going to gag.
How many are in here right now? There's at least 3 or 4 or 5 at all times. It depends.
Well, hopefully they're not. Hopefully they're not gagging.
Oh no, that's funny because I took out my 13-year-old Schnauzer who likes to have his hacking attacks, and I was like, he's right here. I'm like, okay, that's not going to work. I could explain it to everyone, but that's not going to work every 5 seconds. So he's downstairs, but okay. So, but you have done blood therapies with Thymus?
With Thymus and homotox. Yeah, we've been doing those for a long time. So, you were talking about an osteosarcoma. One of my absolute best cases was an osteosarcoma dog. Mm-hmm. So early on.
So yeah, tell me.
So we did Thymus extract, which is called Kiosunex. There's some remarkable data on that, but we gave it with adjuvants and homotoxicology. And this was a patient that came in. The owners did not want to do chemotherapy. They didn't want to do they didn't want to do limb sparing. They didn't want to take the leg off. They just wanted to buy her some good quality time, and so we started. It was a rather large, like a 95 pound white German Shepherd, older dog, 9 or 10, I think at the time, maybe older than that.
And not to interrupt you, but know, for those listeners who don't know about osteosarcoma, I've read that 9 out of 10 large breed dogs get this cancer.
It is common.
And the worst part about this cancer is that it's aggressive. It's a genetic cancer, which I have read that's what you've studied was genetics. So I love
long time ago.
I know, but studied it. And it is fascinating to me to think how these diseases have just taken over these breeds. And, I'll meet somebody and they'll go, oh yeah, I lost my German Shepherd at 2 years old. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
that's terrifying.
wow, we gotta do something, figure out something, change breeding, do something. So
Yeah. Well, the incidence of cancer is somewhere between 1 in 2 and 1 in 3 in dogs. It's horrific.
it is. It's out of control. And you know what I do? Cannabis. So
yeah,
I am the same as these people that you're talking about with the white German Shepherd. I am not doing chemotherapy or radiation, and have not removed the limb because she's still using it.
Right.
Doesn't use it when she's running.
That's the key. Yeah. And that's the thing with this particular dog was. Yeah, we did the therapeutics on her, and at some point in time she started pooling fluid below the tumor, so that was causing her problem. But she was running and playing, and chasing horses, and so her quality of life was fabulous. And at that point in time, we could control the edema for a while, and then we got to the point where we couldn't control the fluid anymore, so it was making her uncomfortable. And I said, look, if she doesn't have any signs of metastatic disease, if she were mine, I'd take the leg off because she's doing great. Well, she lived another couple of years after that, never did have any signs of metastatic disease, and they moved to Pennsylvania. You know Judith Shoemaker, don't you?
Who?
In Pennsylvania, Judith Shoemaker.
Oh.
Oh, well, you've got to interview her if you haven't. But she's actually one of the top foremost experts in the world on postural rehab. So these people moved to her practice area. She was one of the 20 veterinarians in the world that had thymus extract. So it was just so cool. And then she took care of her till the end of her days. So, and she was put down for something besides the cancer.
Awesome. So what was she put down for? Well,
her hind end finally gave out on her. She was a big German Shepherd, so she was already at risk for dysplastic type stuff, and she just got
nowadays, if we come across her, we're also going to incorporate a full spectrum hemp extract or cannabis, and
we add a lot of that to our homotox these days. Actually, we combine them.
Yeah, what is you keep saying the
homotox? It's homotoxicology. It's that complex homeopathy, nanopharmacology, but they're complexes. They're not single remedy, single dilution. They're broader groupings of things. So have you heard of Traumeel?
Yes.
Okay, Traumeel is a complex homeopathic. It was developed by the MD that started Heal, so Reckewig. So and he had.
And what is it? I've heard of it, but I don't know what it is.
It's an anti-inflammatory. It's a marvelous anti-inflammatory. And
it's given how? In the blood?
Oral, injectable. Sometimes people will use them intra-articular. There's probably every way you can give it. You can give Traumeel.
So on this German Shepherd, you gave her this cocktail of that's specific to what she needed. Is it different every time?
It's different every time.
So we were talking about the German Shepherd, the homeotox, protocols for cancer. So I feel like, protocols for cancer all start the same, and then depending on the cancer, where you go.
Exactly.
I love that. And I love that about what you do, because you're going to include anything that's going to help.
Anything that works, basically.
And this homeotox, are you doing that into the blood, taking the blood out and putting it back in?
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. And then, so tell our listeners, because most of our listeners are pet parents, who are trying to take control, understand, have a little bit of knowledge. How does that work? Tell pet parents what happens when you put the blood back in. What is the body do? Why does it work?
So you think about it, anything that's going on, the information of everything that's going on is actually running in the bloodstream. It's actually matrix or mesenchyme. So you're taking it out and you're putting it back in a different space. So the immune system then sees this something else that you put in, and it sends in recruits, so dendritic cells. They go and process this blood and pick up those components. Then they go to the nearest lymph nodes and they clone. So then the cloned cells go out and they start doing surveillance. So it is a body-specific immunotherapy. So we do that for allergies regularly, and anything else really. If it's acute, you do the veterinarian that was talking about the cows that they gave, big slug of blood. They're basically making a hematoma that the immune system goes and looks at again. So if that's called a large blood autologous or a large blood autosanguis, you could do. We usually do small blood autosanguis and mix it with smaller amounts of blood, mixed with the homotox and usually thymus extract, and then we put it back either in acupuncture points, because I don't know acupuncture. I know a few really good points, so we put it in acupuncture points. For years I just put it.
You put it on the needle and put it into the acupuncture point.
No, we inject it with a 30 gauge, 27 or 30 gauge needle and inject it right into the acupuncture points, like biopuncture, or sometimes you do trigger points, which isn't the same thing as acupuncture, but you put them in like when we have a downer dog, we'll put it on either side of the spine, just dorsal or just ahead of where they have the most reactivity.
Wow.
And we're trying to get the body to re-regulate that overt inflammatory response.
And we were talking about what is it called when you take the blood out and put it back in?
It's called autosanguis or autologous blood. There's other names for it, but those are the two most common.
So like if someone would want to go in and talk to their vet about it, what do they say?
Well, they would, those are the terms.
Say what I say. I want to take my dog's blood out, put it back. Put it back in.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Because that's
I work with veterinarians all the time. I'm happy to send them the information on that. In fact, my staff and I were just talking about, we really need to do a video, some video shorts on this is the way you do it, because some people are going, their head scratching me. And it's so simple to do. It's so simple. It's not hard. It's not rocket science, and it's a no harm strategy. So why not try it? Particularly if you're stuck, why not try it?
Well, we're working on a documentary, and we did a little tour called the Healing Naturally Tour. And whenever this pandemic lets us travel again, we're gonna put you on our stop so that we can come and film all these things for you, because
cool.
I love this stuff and it makes sense to me. And I'm starting, because I'm in the cannabis industry and with pets, I'm starting to learn that there's all kinds of wonderful things that are out there that are being kept from us, because you can't patent nature. You can't patent or make a whole bunch of money off of something that occurs naturally in our world and in plants. So
exactly.
We fight that all the time, that.
Well, sometimes they try, like they're talking about taking N-acetylcysteine away from, is it N-acetyl? I think it's N-acetylcysteine that they're trying to take away from the natural practitioners, because now they're trying to categorize it as a drug. So, because it's actually helpful for coronavirus.
Right.
So,
see, that's what happens. Is that when people start paying attention to it, and then they, I'm assuming somebody in the pharmaceutical world goes, wait, can't do that.
We could make a lot more money on that if we make it scripted. Yeah.
Right.
I know.
We just take out a piece of it or an isolate and then make it, now it's a dangerous drug.
That's pretty evil. Yeah.
So, I know that you don't believe in any of that. So tell me how you use cannabis in this therapy.
Well, we actually are using more and more of it all the time. It kind of depends on the patients. We use it a lot in the pain category, just trying to ramp down the overt inflammatory response. It gives them a better quality of life. The dog that's in here was gagging a minute ago was a renal failure dog. I mean, had the worst numbers I've ever seen. This will be 3 years ago next month. And I expected him to be gone. And he's never been a good eater, which doesn't help when you've got a kidney failure dog. And so he was one of the early ones that I started using the hemp on, the cannabis on. And, he's still with me. His creatinine was 10.3, which is horrific. It's down in the normal range, which I never expected to happen. His phosphorus was high enough that he should never have survived all of that. So I don't know. It was probably inflammatory. I'm guessing it was secondary to Ehrlichia. But he's still with us against all odds. And one of the things that it helped with is it improved his sense of well-being and it improved his appetite.
And that's,
they've got to eat.
they've got to eat, and it's a lifesaver. And if you can get them to eat, you can also hide some things in that food so that
Exactly. You have to bribe something down them. Exactly.
But yeah, it's, you know, it has become, of course, it's my favorite plant and plant medicine, and it is my go-to no matter what happens on my farm with any animal. I just know it's going to immediately make them feel better and get rid of the pain, and that's what we all want. We don't want our pets to suffer.
No, and every cell has cannabinoid receptors. So, you know, I'm not the expert on that. I've never lectured on it because there are so many people who know so much more than I do. I don't see any point. Yeah, I don't see any point in reinventing the wheel. I mean, there's people who've been in it for a long, long time, and they're far more eminently qualified to lecture on those things. But I'm sure you've seen it. There was an absolutely fabulous kind of an infographic where someone did, like, it was a big tree of the cannabinoids and stuff, and how if you dismantle one, take something off, and it you know, you re-regulate, and just putting the cannabinoids back in can put all those dominoes back in place where, you know, where they can rebalance. So amazing.
This is why I love having a conversation with you, because you understand that it works, why it would work. Other plants work, so why wouldn't this work? To me, it's the adaptogen of all adaptogens, and
it's been around for eons. And, you know, a lot of the you know, there's always the talk about THC and stuff, but until I don't know what year it was, hemp was encouraged to be grown. It's a huge, I mean, there's so many uses for hemp. So many uses, and I think it was blocked by big paper or something, you know, like
the cotton industry.
Yeah,
cotton industry.
Was it cotton?
Does not want hemp.
Because it competed.
It will destroy. It's when it is a textile or fabric, it is naturally an antibacterial. It is the strongest. So yes, just like pharmaceutical industry is scared of cannabis and these natural, cotton industry does not want hemp to happen.
Well, and you know, we import our hemp ropes. We make some of the best rope in the world, and we import it. Well, that's ridiculous.
You don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because we've legalized that as a crop, which, you know, and was it during the war or something that they decided to vilify hemp as a plant to be grown in. I don't know, the whole thing. We're so many years behind where we should be.
It is. Well, what is wonderful about the endocannabinoid system is that it is the master regulator. It is responsible for keeping all of the other systems running correctly. So it's almost like it's, you know, if it's the president, the lymphatic system's probably its vice president. You know, when I, of course, start preparing to speak to you, I knew I wanted to talk about thymus because it's so important and you have so much experience in it, but we know nothing about it. So I, of course, start looking at the thymus gland and see that, you know, it's got receptors all over and what it's responsible for. So I know that if the endocannabinoid system was talked about as easily and readily as the lymphatic system was studied, that it was probably a part of the endocannabinoid system, because I feel like they have so much in common.
Yeah.
And I have had so much luck, which I know you have also, with the moment I can get rid of that inflammation, the moment that I can take a dog that obviously has a deficiency in its endocannabinoid system, meaning it's not producing its endocannabinoids. I can go take these phytocannabinoids from the cannabis plant, supplement, and fix an issue. So I am no vet, but with cannabis and, you know, a raw, fresh diet, I've gotten rid of lymphoma, mast cell. I have gotten dogs to get up and walk again, just like you have.
Have to give them foundation. They've got to have the underpinnings to heal.
It's unbelievable how many people are putting their dogs down because they stopped walking.
Oh, well, you know, that's really how I got started down the integrative medicine have. And I used choline before the Glycoflex, but Perna in about 1983 just virtually changed the way I practiced medicine, because it was those dogs that couldn't get up. And we'd start them on the Perna, and they'd be in a couple of weeks later, they'd be walking, and the owner would be saying, I don't know what the dog's taking, but I want some of that. So, we sell a ton of Glycoflex on the human side, because it has non-glycosaminoglycans, it has natural anti-inflammatories, it's the acid that's 300 times more potent oil as an anti-inflammatory. So, those things change they make you reformat what you think about health and healing.
Right. I think and what the best part about it is that if you're dealing with a whole bunch of these wonderful natural things, when you take them together, they usually work in synergy. Help each other.
Exactly.
So it's funny. I just learned about a carrier oil. I didn't just learn about it, unfortunately. I learned about it when I developed my formulas, but I was like, I can't include this carrier oil because nobody knows it, and I already have to convince everybody that cannabis is safe for their pets. So I can't educate twice. But
you can.
Gonna get there. Well, now I've earned their trust and my product works great. So, and I talk to great vets like you that go, it's safe, it's wonderful, it saves lives. So then I now feel like I can go, okay, here's this oil. This oil is also an adaptogen. So unlike a coconut oil or an olive oil or anything, this oil is an adaptogen. So of course, everything I'm going to formulate from here on out is going to have a malt oil. Have you ever heard of it? AMAL?
No, I have not, and I'm down rabbit holes all the time. So
yeah, I will
have to put that in the back of my head.
I'll send you a bottle of it.
Oh, cool!
Because it is in India better than turmeric, and they're like, turmeric, that's nothing. So it has no shelf. It's never goes bad.
Really?
It has all these wonderful, properties.
So is it Ayurvedic or just it's just okay? Yep. Yeah, my grandfather was from India, so I've always been fascinated with the Indian forms of medicine.
That's where your great hair comes from.
Well, my grandmother was Indian and Hispanic, so
Perfect mix for great hair. Yes, I'm a big believer in Ayurvedic medicine. That's kind of where I started, and then
really,
yeah, that's where I've always been. I tell everybody I grew up on Deepak Chopra and and Oprah Winfrey.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was.
You're obviously much younger than me, so.
Yeah, I remember being like 24, 25 and seeing Deepak Chopra speak. I know I was the youngest person in the room, and buy a stack of his, it was probably not his first book, but his first big book, and got one for everyone on there. So yeah, I've always, it's never steered me wrong. It's kind of like cannabis. Cannabis says it'll do this, this, and this. I took it and it did that,
Okay. So we got we like this particular bioenergetic screening because we can run tissues on it. Primarily I use blood, but you can run hair, gingival swabs, toenail clippings, anything that has DNA in it you can run. So, EAV was one of those things I was introduced to also from the old biotherapeutic indexes from the Homotox people. And when we test, we'll run several different hemps on it, and they test differently. And I am convinced it's because we have different varieties of cannabis. They're harvested differently. They're different concentrations. There's so many variations on those. We've had 4 different hemps, and they all test different. They all test different.
And right now, treating Nina, my Doberman, I have her, of course, on my 1,100 milligram full spectrum hemp extract, but I'm also giving her THC, 10 milligrams of THC. Now I do that because I know THC kills cancer.
Yeah. Yes, and that is when I've seen some of the data on that, and it is remarkable. There's the different cannabinoids have different anti-cancer properties as well. And I think that's the challenge, is that there are.
What you're talking about?
Huh?
You know what you're talking about. I do. I know you missed my lecture because you had to leave at whatever. I'm happy to do the whole thing privately with you in case you pick up on something else. But what you just said is so true. CBDA, which is the acidic raw form of CBD, has amazing anti-cancer properties. And we say this don't take our word for it. The research is already out there. Understand that when there's cancer research done, most of the time, or any type of research done, they do it on animals. So when they do it on animals, we get to see what happens to the animal. Well, guess what? It got rid of their cancer. So you definitely want to keep these in mind. So when we're giving them an oil, there is the raw form, CBDA is in our tincture, but as you know, the raw form starts to deteriorate, over time. The moment the flower gets to a certain point, it reaches its max. And then with age, even before you start to cut it, it just starts to deteriorate. You cut it, it's aging a little faster, you dry it, you put heat on it, that CBDA eventually is completely gone.
Yeah, it
so when
degrades.
you're in something that's super processed, you're not going to probably have any amounts of CBDA. The best way to get CBDA is from a raw flower. So I grind up hemp flower, cannabis flower, and put it on Nina's food. I have a video of it.
Makes sense.
I do it, and then I give it to her, and she actually licks it off first. So she took her tongue and was licking off the raw cannabis before she ate everything else. So.
Oh, I think dogs are intuitive. You have to be willing to shift with that. You have to look at the change and say, okay, what do we need now? If the body can't detox right now, you sometimes just have to get the system ready to take all the trash that you're getting ready to move. Then you might detox down the road. Not every animal can detox to start with. So it's a process of healing. The body does not stay. If it stayed the same all the time, they wouldn't need us after the first treatment.
Right. So these are really, how does someone get in touch with you or find out more information? Because I know you said that you can work with their vet. Can you be their vet? Can they do?
Well, it depends on what we're doing, and I'm happy to work with other veterinarians. It's not a competition. It's whatever's best for that patient. I'm willing to teach veterinarians that live elsewhere. Whatever I know, I'm happy to share with them. And there are some, we do some, like the Quest, we can do remotely. I mean, they can send us the tissues, we can run the Quests and, do body specific therapy on those animals. But I like to have, especially long distance patients, I think they need to stay in contact with the veterinarian they have there. For one thing, you can sometimes shift people's thinking. So, years ago, I had a dog that had the worst hemolytic anemia and thrombocytopenia, both. She was probably a 17-year-old poodle. Horrible numbers. I did not think she would turn around at all. Well, I didn't actually. I should be a little less negative than that, but they were terrible numbers. And so we sent blood therapy and enlisted her veterinarian to do the blood therapy. Well, her veterinarian thought we were absolutely out of our ever-loving minds. But that dog turned around. She lived to be like 22 or 23 years old. So all of a sudden, all of that stuff, it's like you turn a light on for somebody and they say, oh, there is something else. And funny thing about that particular owner was a few years after that, down the road, she had I think it was a chow with a perianal adenocarcinoma. It was a bad one. And I said, well, buy some. This was before the CBD was, freely available. I don't know where she sourced it. She was a lawyer and she found it. And I said, put it on topically and give it orally. And that it improved that dog's quality of life significantly. And the veterinarian has gotten to the point where they say, well, whatever you come up with, try it, because if it works, it works.
And you know what? It's kind of a sign. If you don't have an open-minded vet that's willing to try something that you did your research and found another vet that's using with success, then it might be time to get another vet. I know it's hard. I know I get calls all the time because people don't have a vet in their area. I always say AHVMA to see if they can find a holistic one. But
Exactly. Well, there's 3 veterinarians in the state of Arkansas that are on the
there you
AHVMA
go.
website. But there's veterinarians. Sometimes they're just pigeonholed somewhere, and if you look around, you can find people. And often you'll find somebody that is willing to, take a step outside of the box. And the lady in Michigan that had the hemolytic anemia dog, she bought a copy of the book that I was one of the co-authors on it with Rick Palmquist and Goldstein and a few others. It's integrating complementary medicine into veterinary practice.
All right.
So it's Goldstein's the lead author on that, but it has homotox in it, Chinese medicine, Western herbals, nutrition. It's a big book, and I have had several people buy it for their veterinarians.
I love
when
that.
they didn't live here.
Merry Christmas.
Exactly.
I got you some good reading.
Yes.
How do people find you? Do you have a website or?
I am on Facebook, and I have a dinosaur. So I don't, I've never done a website, but people have been telling me that for like 20 years. You need a website. So one of my staff people is working on a website now. Don't make any promises, but we're working on one. Hopefully, we'll actually have one up. But we're on Facebook, Broadfoot Veterinary Clinic.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining me. I look forward to having you on again, and I can't wait to see you again.
Oh, well, and you please keep me posted on your osteosarcoma. If there's anything I can help with, let me know.
I will. And we're going to come visit you, and we'll bring Dr. Zach, and he'll
Yes.
show you ozone therapy, and you show him.
That'd be great. That'd be great.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you. Have a good day.